This is a demo tutorial on how to enable WinPE third-party imaging in ZENworks configuration management. First, we start downloading the ADK, which is the assessment and deployment kit provided by Microsoft. This is a set of tools and that allows you to do imaging with a Windows-based imaging environment. So here we're searching for it and downloading this developer kit. We're going to download it on this Windows 7 machine. It's just a clean workstation where we're going to install this kit. We proceed with downloading and executing the ADK. It's asking you to download and install the .NET that actually we didn't have on this machine. After .NET is installed, it will proceed with installing the ADK. We just simply accept the default for the installation and proceeding with that. This ADK, the Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit, is based on Windows 8.1. So in other words, the imaging engine is based on Windows 8.1. I think there is a newer one that is based on Windows 10, but for better compatibility, I'm simply using Windows 8.1 as the imaging engine. After the ADK is installed, we simply go to our ZENworks console to make the proper configuration so that WinPE third-party imaging is enabled. After we logged in CCC, we go to configuration. And we go to device management, and under it we choose pre-boot services. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the section where it says third-party imaging settings, and this is where we have to set up and upload the files from the ADK tool. In order to enable that, or to be able to upload those files into CCC, this uses a browser plugin. So we're trying to launch this browser plugin by clicking on the magnifier glass. We see an error in here saying that it's not detected or it's not able to upload the file because it's not installed yet. So we'll go ahead and proceed with installing that plugin. Again, to enable these settings, we need to install a browser plugin. This plugin is provided by CCC. So we go ahead and just install the MSI plugin. After that, go ahead and try it again. I believe there is another plugin that we need to install. So as soon as you see an error or claiming that you're missing some, just go ahead and accept and install whatever plugin you are presented with. In this case, we're missing Java, so we'll go ahead and install that plugin, or that extension for the browser. So again, as I mentioned before, this is just a brand new Windows 7 workstation where we just a minute ago we installed the ADK. Now we are trying to install the necessary plugins to be able to upload from the WinPE files in CCC, the ZENworks console. So after Java is installed, we can go back and try to launch again the plugin. This time it did launch the plugin when we click the magnifier glass. Now we need to specify the path for the ADK, for the toolkit. And in this case, we're trying to find the WinPE file, engine file. Don't worry about the path. This is specified and mentioned in the documentation. So if you need to find the file, in here we're getting an error when trying to upload this file, and it's unable to mount the selected Win file. So the reason for this is because we're trying to have a plugin to read a file in your disk, and that probably is a security risk. So we have to change some security settings on this workstation. Again, doing this normally it would be really bad, to allowing a plugin to access your hard drive. You wouldn't do that in any untrusted environment, but for ZENworks it's necessary to enable that. So we go to user account control settings and make it to the lowest security level. Again, to allow this plugin to be able to access the hard drive where the ADK is. So we change that setting in UAC settings, and we're going to reboot the workstation again to make it so that those changes happen. Okay, we're back in the workstation. We're going to launch again the ZENworks Control Center, CCC, and we're going to try it again to specify the WinPE files. And we go back in CCC, we go to configuration, then device management, and then preboot services, where those settings are. We're going to attempt again, we're going to click on the magnifier glass, and we're going to try to select again the WinPE file, which is the Windows-based imaging environment. this time it did take it because we lowered the restrictions so that this plugin is able to access the hard drive. So what happened in here is not just a simple upload of a file. It actually, what CCM is doing is injecting some of the ZENworks tools into this Win file, this WinPE Win file. So it's injecting the ZENworks tool, imaging tools, into the Windows-based imaging environment. That's what it's taking. It takes some time. It takes several minutes to do so. So, and that's why, again, that's why this plugin needs to have access to the hard drives. So, because it needs to inject this ZENworks tools, imaging tools, into the WinPE imaging engine. After several minutes, we can see that it's finally finishing. We got that in place now. Now we also need to upload the ImageX. This is another tool that actually does the imaging operation. The other one was the engine, in other words, the OS, a basic OS to do imaging. The ImageX is the tool that allows the imaging to be built, read, and deployed. So. This goes fast because it's just one file that needs to be uploaded. So we go ahead and click apply in here and click OK to make sure it's saved. And then on the second round, we go ahead and enable it for 64-bit. And in the operation is similar. We click on the magnifier glass, but this time we specify the path of the WinPE for 64 bits. Again, this is specified in the documentation as well, but you can see it in here that the path will be 64. Let's go AMD 64. So also take a few minutes. Again, this part is where the browser plugin is manipulating the Win file from in your hard drive. It's injecting the ZENworks imaging tools into the WinPE imaging environment. After this is finished, we also upload the ImageX tool, similar as before, but this is the 64-bit version. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's kind of confusing to find the 32 and 64-bit. So what I usually do is just search for it. You'll find two. One is the 64-bit and the other one is the 32-bit. There's the 32 bits. So that's how you usually find the correct path for it. And this is, again, I've been saying this many times, but this is again clearly stated and specified in the documentation. After that, we click apply and OK, and now we can go back into the CCM server. In this case, this is an appliance, just to verify that the changes have been made. So if we go to the TFTP folder, we can see that the Pixie menu TXT has been recently modified, and that gives you an indication that this WinPE configuration have been made and are in place. So what we're going to do now is we're gonna enable proxy on this CCM server. So we have to start the proxy dhcp service so we can do proxy from this imaging server. It's starting the service and making sure it is running. We'll see that it's running now. Now what are we gonna do? We're gonna actually do imaging. We're gonna image a machine. But before we do so, I forgot, we have to have a Windows file server. Or in this case, I'm just doing a Postman file servers on this very same workstation. I'm just sharing a folder. Again, so when you're using WinPE, you can only save an image into a Windows file server. You cannot save the image directly into your imaging server the way you do it with Linux-based imaging. So for testing purposes, I'm sharing a folder on my workstation. And this is just some basic things that we do to enable to sharing a folder. I mean, there are a few little things, but I'm showing them in this video as well. There's some restriction that we need to change, and we also have to, when we share a folder, we have to have a username and password. This is also important. The WinPE third-party imaging will only save to a file server that has authentication requirements. It cannot save on an open file server per se. We're also making some changes like turning on network discovery. We're also turning on sharing so anyone with a network access can read. And we're also turning off any password. We're just making sure that this share folder that we just created is visible and accessible by anyone. Now we have our folder called share on this machine where we're gonna actually save an image when we do this test later on. Just adding everyone in the folder, just making sure this. Sometimes I have issues when I'm missing one of these settings. You may have some experience with this. Sometimes it shares, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just making sure this folder is fully open and have access to anyone. Okay, so we have another workstation. This is a new Windows 7 machine. This is a machine we're gonna take an image. We're gonna make an image from this machine. So we're gonna shut it down after we configure it the way we want it. We're gonna shut it down, and we're gonna boot in proxy mode. As you can see here, now we have a third option called WinPE maintenance mode. This is the option that was added because we enabled WinPE imaging a few minutes ago. Usually you don't have that option. So here it goes really fast, but it's started loading the WinPE WIM, which is the Windows-based imaging environment. If you've done imaging before, you're used to the other one that is Linux-based. In this case, we're using WinPE, which is Windows-based. And this is a stripped down version of Windows 8.1, and it launches the ZENworks imaging tool right after it boots. And this is a very basic imaging tool. You see options for partition, and you can delete partition, create partitions, and see what you have in there. But for this video, we're just making a simple. We're gonna just simply take an image from this machine the way it is. So we choose server, take an image, server, and then here this is where we specify our file server. In this case, I'm specifying the share folder that I just created a minute ago, and then I give the image file name that I'm gonna use. So I'm calling it win7-test.wim, and this is the part we have to put the credentials. As I mentioned before, we had to actually put credentials in order to get this to work. So make sure your file server has read and write rights, and it have authentication requirements. Now the imaging process starts. This obviously will take several minutes. Right now, just scanning all the files and compiling all the things that it needs to do. The imaging process should start shortly. So we can see the percentage progressing here. So it's reading the files from this machine and is sending them to our image file in the share folder we created before. Okay, now I finished taking the image. Now we see image operation succeeded message in there. Now these image files should be saved in the share folder that we created. So if we go there, we can see the file. It's about 4 gigs and a half, the entire image file. Now what we're going to do is we're going to restore this image into a different machine. So on the new machine, we choose the option again, the WinPE maintenance mode, to allow the imaging, the Windows-based imaging environment to load. So this is a different machine where we're going to restore the image that we just created. Okay, so this time we go to imaging and we do restore image on this new machine. Then we put the path for the image. That's my workstation, the share folder, and the name of the image file. Credential as well, the username and password to access that file share. We just do default options there. We'll say OK. now it's proceeding with restoring this image file. Obviously, restoring an image should be a little bit faster than taking it. So it should be done in a few minutes. So one of the things that this is very useful is sometimes we run into machines that Linux-based imaging simply doesn't work. There are not the proper drivers for it. So this is another option that would allow you to image machines that for some reason you cannot get it to image using Linux-based imaging environment. So in situations like that, this becomes really useful. Okay, so restoring the image was successful, and we can go ahead and reboot this machine, and the new image should boot and start just fine. So we go back to our share, we see our file there, and then you can deploy this very same image to multiple machines. Obviously, if you have a Windows server, file server, you can host those files on a full-blown Windows file server. For testing purposes, we simply just share a folder on this Windows workstation. Okay, so this is how we were able to enable WinPE third-party imaging on ZENworks configuration management. And again, this is where you enable those settings. You need to install the ADK on a workstation, and from that workstation access CCC to be able to upload those files, WinPE files necessary to do Windows-based imaging. Most of the instructions for this are in the documentation as well. So if we go back to the TFTP folder, this is the place or the folder where these files were updated. If you can just simply do a search in there, and here I'm just searching for WinPE, you can see the location where those files were put in place. With this, we conclude this tutorial. This demo. This will allow you to enable a simple environment to use WinPE for imaging. If you have any questions on this, feel free to contact support or let us know if any way we can help you. Thank you very much.